Council meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. First on my agenda would be personal appeals. If you have an appeal to make to council, please approach the podium, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes to make your appeal.
Good evening. My name is Greg Walls. I am the commander of the Catholic War Veterans Post 1067, and I am here to appeal or ask you to vote tonight on our curbside refuge fee. I did have a meeting, as you directed last meeting, to meet with the Health and Sanitation Committee. I brought the necessary paperwork, I believe, to address your concerns. I believe you're
We are in receipt of the information, the paperwork you dropped off, and I believe, Mr. Shubsta, you'll be bringing it up under your committee report this evening.
Yes.
But we have everything we need, Mr. Walls, and if we'd have questions at that time, we'll be sure to let you know.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Very much.
You're welcome.
John Donchis, Emmaus. 2 requests, just one again. You have the equipment here for videotaping and all. If you could do that for all your committee meetings, it'd be great. I'd appreciate it. And the other one would be to use the phone system for notifying people of, especially like special meetings that you had. That was poorly announced in that sense. So you used it the week after when the heating system went out, so it would have been good for using it for announcing the special meeting at least. Thank you.
Anyone else with a personal appeal this evening? Hearing none, moving on to community minute. Any member of council have anything? Mr. Shubsta, please.
Yep. Two items I just want to say. First of all, thank you to the Borough of Emmaus from the Emmaus Arts Commission for all the work that they did for the annual Snow Blast Festival. And also I have a special thank you going out to 2 of my wrestlers who are on their way to states representing Emmaus High School. That would be Thomas Alcaro and Lucas Schaff.
Thank you, sir. Special presentations? Nothing this evening. Reading of the minutes of the February 17, 2015 meeting. You'll find those in your packet. Is there a motion to dispense with the formal reading of the minutes? Motion by Mr. Labenberg, second by Mr. Shubsta. Discussion. All those in favor? We have 6 ayes. For the record, Mayor Yobst is absent this evening. Mrs. Gilbert is filling in as the mayor, and I'll fill in as the president. Any additions or corrections to the February 17th meeting minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the minutes as drafted? Motion by Mr. Labenberg, second by Mr. Anders. Discussion? All in favor? We have 5 ayes. Opposed? Abstentions? Mr. Barrett's abstaining. Thank you, sir. Decision on bids. Mr. Pepe, do you have any decision on bids this evening?
No.
Communications, we have a letter from Fred Mussel, the Secretary-Treasurer of the Cedar Brook Sportsman, requesting a $300 donation for the stocking of 200 trout in Furnace Dam prior to the first day of trout season, which will be here in another 5 weeks. I wonder if they'll drill holes in the ice to put them in. Thursday, April 2nd, he would like to stock it. I believe that is typically recommended to Budget and Finance.
You did budget this.
Okay, it is a budgeted item. Would someone like to make a motion to grant that request? Motion by Mr. Anders. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Labenberg. Discussion. Mr. Labenberg.
So this is for this year.
Correct. They're going to stock
I know
April
we
2nd.
do it on a yearly basis, but we should inform them that to notify us before actual budget time. I know we budget it every year, but
Yeah.
It would be, you're
I
correct.
just don't think we ever notified them, and it'd be proper for them to get it to us before budget time.
Yeah, and that's,
Maybe in
I
your
can
letter-
send them a letter saying
Maybe
that.
in your letter saying that we approved it, that you, in the future, try to get it in and tell them what month to get it in.
Thank you, Mr. Labenberg. Any further discussion? All those in favor? We have 6 ayes. Next piece of communication comes from Jessica Malewitz of the the PTO of Lincoln School, requesting street closure, a few street closures, refuse containers, and picnic tables for the Spring Festival that will be held Thursday, May 28th from 4 to 7. I'm assuming this gets referred to the mayor and to staff. If you could take care of that, Mr. Pepe, that would be greatly appreciated. On your desk this evening, you'll find communication from Michael Gibson. Mr. Gibson is just expressing his appreciation for Borough Council considering the purchase of the Rodale building. He feels that it will reduce utility costs, reduce insurance costs, ease communication with many departments, and much more. It will bring a better quality of work to the borough staff. I know that some citizens will be disappointed with the moving of borough services from downtown, but I think over time they'll come to appreciate the services being located in one location. Additionally, he believes it is a sound financial decision. Sincerely, Mike Gibson. Does anyone else have any further communication this evening? Mr. Pepe?
I do not.
Mrs. Gilbert?
I do not.
Any member of council? Moving on. I do not have a borough engineer this evening. There'll be no report. Solicitor's report. Mr. Dinkelhocker, welcome.
I have nothing, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, sir. Anyone have any questions? Moving on to unfinished business, part 1. For unfinished business, part 1, I have ordinance number 1120. This looks to be the second reading of an ordinance relating to removing a handicap parking sign. Is there a motion to read the ordinance in short title? Motion by Mr. Labenberg, second by Mr. Brown. Discussion? All in favor? We have 6 ayes. Ordinance number 1120, an ordinance of the Borough of Emmaus, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, amending Chapter 15, Section 602.2.a of the Emmaus Borough Code, removing a residential handicap parking sign on the public street located in front of 811 Chestnut Street, and Chapter 15, Section 403, establishing prohibited parking on Railroad Street within the Borough of Emmaus. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance? Motion by Mr. Brown. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Anders. Discussion? A roll call vote. Mr. Labenberg?
Aye.
Mr. Barrett? Aye. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Shubsta?
Aye.
Mr. Anders?
Aye.
Mr. Holtsafer votes aye. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to new business. Under new business, you'll find ordinance number 1123, first reading this evening of this ordinance. Is there a motion to read the ordinance in short title? Motion by Mr. Brown, second by Mr. Barrett. Discussion? All those in favor? We have 6 ayes. Ordinance number 1123, an ordinance of the Borough of Emmaus, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, regulating the activities of transient merchants, defining relevant words and phrases, establishing a licensing program, providing for exempt persons and activities, and providing for penalties for violation thereof. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance? Motion by Mr. Brown, second by Mr. Barrett. Discussion. Mr. Pepe, could you just give us a quick overview? Or a committee member, it doesn't matter to me, I'm sorry.
No, sure, I'll give it. This ordinance was probably about a year in the making, and really why it came about was an increasing number of complaints by both borough staff and the police department, as well as residents. We had a number of issues in town. We had found, these are for, so everyone knows, this is for door-to-door sales, so people knocking on your door wanting to sell you a new driveway, or as well as the guy that wants to have the ice cream truck in town. So there's 2 different kinds of licenses under this program. Our problem really started with the door-to-door sales. A couple people that came in We found their company was kicked out of a bunch of states for fraud. Another one, we found a gentleman came in with a fake driver's license. We found another guy who had a warrant out for his arrest in Florida and Ohio and some other state. And these are the guys knocking on your door. And there's really no regulatory program to try to address this. We also had an incident where in town, people dressed in orange public works outfits. Now our guys were, or they were dressed in green public works outfits. Our guys are dressed in orange. So it kind of gave it away. Thank goodness this gentleman had his bearings about him, because they had said that they were from the water department and wanted to come in and check his meter. He quickly dialed 911. Of course, they scattered, and I'm not sure if they made it out of town or not, but the police responded immediately. So trying to regulate that in terms of, first of all, there's a lot of people in town saying, I don't want people to knock on my door. So this establishes a do not solicit list for the borough. Now, this doesn't include people protected under the First Amendment, meaning the religious groups, they still have their right to knock on your door. Political activity, you still have your right to knock on the door. This is strictly for sales. But it requires people to file permits like they always have, but background checks, some other regulatory checks, and now we have the power to do and regulate the business much more than what we did. And it also gives, of course, the residents the opportunity that if they don't want people knocking on their door, they can file through a list through the borough, which we're still working out the details how we're going to manage that. But it gives them the opportunity to be on that list, and if a person violates that list, we can actually revoke their license from it. So it incorporates all of that into this ordinance. And Attorney Dinkelhocker helped us write the ordinance. So we've been working on it for, say, the better part of a year, I believe.
Very thorough explanation. Thank you, Mr. Pepe. Any questions from council? Mr. Shubsta.
Yep, a couple questions. How does this affect groups that bring in other organizations? Like, for instance, if you pick something like Community Days and they bring in other organizations that are soliciting.
Tom, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, bro. With the other groups, I'm not sure I understand the...
Yeah, so, like, for instance... No, I'm sorry. So, for Community Days, they bring in groups from outside the area. They set up tables and things as such. So how are they exempt from this? Do they have to go through all the background checks and everything else for those types of groups that are brought in?
This is the idea of we invited the vendors to come.
Right. We don't make an exception for that. The exceptions to the ordinance are really, they come right out of the Borough Code. The Borough Code authorizes this type of a regulation. So if you go to Section 8, you have the exempt persons.
Yeah, that's
and these
my
are
next
these are
question.
the farmers, persons selling personal property if they're to be applied to charitable or philanthropic purpose, manufacturers of bread, bakery products, milk, etc., insurance companies and their agents, persons. Now, here's one of the areas which is not required by the Borough Code, but we exempt it. Persons engaged in regulated activities on private property with the consent of the owner.
Right.
So if you are solely on private property and you have the owner's consent, then you are exempt. So if the circumstances that you're talking about would be on private property, and I would include property of the borough, because in other words, the owner of the property is consenting to the activity, so there's no intrusion or anything like that.
Okay.
So if you have that consent, and I'm thinking, the classic example for me would be, the Girl Scouts are selling cookies at a shopping plaza or at a CVS outside the door. They have permission to be there. They don't need to go through
Or your
this
carnivals
process.
and things like that.
Right. So
need to
that's
go
kind
through
of a
that.
broad exemption, and I think that might be similar to what you were
Yeah, that's
talking
what
about.
I was wondering who.
Yeah.
who
So
allows
people
that.
like that would be exempt.
Okay.
Because even though it's not technically an exception under the Borough Code, it's not causing anybody any harm when there's consent.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, Mr. Barrett?
We talked a bit about, the safety side of it, which I think is really where it initiated, but in some ways it also creates a clarification on exactly what Jeff was just asking there, which really was vague before. It was pretty much treated in the manner that was just discussed, but it formalizes that by creating some standards. And then also, I think a little bit of equitability and fairness for permanent businesses that are in town versus transient businesses, maybe
Correct.
a little bit better balance to that. So, yeah, I think it's a good move forward.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Anders.
Just my only comment is, I think about come spring and the energy companies that come out, and I can think to last year, they came to my door, they went to my neighbor's back door and through their screen porch. This would help protect them. I asked them several times if they had any kind of reason to be here with, approval from the borough, and they did not. So I think this is a great ordinance to help prevent some of that from happening. I thank the committee for working on that.
Yeah, Kathy Andel, who is in charge of handing out the permits, she's the perfect person when they start knocking on the doors, because she asks them right away if they have a permit. They say, of course, it's out in the car, and she says, no, it's not. So, and she can name probably 5 or 6 different times just in the past year where she had that kind of thing. And also there's an education piece to this for the community if you guys do adopt this, getting it out into our newsletters, getting it out into the website, so that people know that this is something that they need to look out for. It's scary if you realize somebody's knocking on the door that is wanted in 2 or 3 different states.
Mr. Leibenberg.
So we were going to have a do not solicit list that residents can put their name on the list.
Correct.
And then when they come to Borough Hall, they'll get that list, either a hard copy or we'll be able to transfer it via computer. And we'll have to notify the residents how to contact us and do that.
And the ordinance, we're still working out the details how we're going to manage the list. But what the residents need to know is their names are not going to be on the list. It's just going to be 1163. North 4th or whatever the address is. It'll be the list of addresses. It won't be, West Barrett, whatever his address is. It'll just be the address itself.
Now, the one thing I don't remember what we came up with, but I know we discussed it, is whether we were going to provide do not solicit stickers, or is that just something that residents can get on their own?
We did not say that we would provide them.
Okay.
I mean, we could. It's a minimal. It's a minimal cost. I think it does say in there about, I'm not sure if it's in this version or not. I mean, we've written a bunch of versions. But somewhere along the line of versions, I think it said if they violate somebody that has a do not solicit sign on their house, I think it's a violation of the ordinance. I'm not sure if it's in this version of it or not.
What we say, Shane, is it's a prohibited act and a violation of the ordinance to solicit or attempt to solicit any property identified on the list.
Okay.
So it doesn't need to be on the house to be a violation.
I guess my last
Mr. Leibenberg, go ahead.
my last question is, Hoger Craig came by my house selling, I don't know, cheesecake or something one time. How would that situation? They're a nonprofit, but they're going door to door. They pulled up a van and they had a bunch of people and they were hitting all the houses.
Under item 882, which is page 7, I'm going to guess without knowing the full circumstance, persons selling personal property if the proceeds of the sale are to be applied to a charitable or philanthropic purpose. And what I know of that situation, because I've had that same solicitation, my recollection is that what they are doing is that those are fundraising activities for a charitable or maybe even a 501c3 organization, but I'm not entirely sure.
So no different than a Girl Scout or a Boy Scout.
Right. Girl Scout. And again, this is an exemption that is right in the new borough code. So by law, we're required to exempt parties like that.
Thank you.
But I'm not sure that that particular organization necessarily qualifies. I'm guessing it does, but I don't know.
Do they still have to notify us that they're going door to door, or can they just go do it?
The ordinance does not require them to go and notify us.
Okay.
Thank you. We have a motion that is properly seconded for the first reading of ordinance number 1123. This is a roll call vote. Mr. Leibenberg.
Aye.
Mr. Barrett.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Mr. Shubsta.
Aye.
Mr. Anders?
Aye.
Mr. Holtzafer votes aye. Motion passes on first reading. And Mr. Pepe, you have a plan for second reading?
Second reading will be April the 6th, hopefully.
Very good. Moving on to continuing new business, ordinance number 1124. Is there a motion to read ordinance number 1124 in short title? Motion by Mr. Labenberg, second by Mr. Brown. Discussion. All in favor? We have 6 ayes. Ordinance number 1124, an ordinance of the Borough of Emmaus, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, amending ordinance 1099 in Chapter 15, Sections 602.2.a of the Emmaus Borough Code, removing a residential handicap parking sign on the public street located in front of 638 Walnut Street and adding residential handicap parking signs on the public street located in front of 570 Broad Street and in front of 525 Broad Street within the Borough of Emmaus. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance number 1124? Motion by Mr. Labenberg, second by Mr. Brown. Discussion? A roll call vote. Mr. Labenberg.
Aye.
Mr. Barrett.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Mr. Shobsta.
Aye.
Mr. Anders.
Aye.
Mr. Holtzafer votes aye. It would be a 6-0 vote. For first reading, same plan, Mr. Pepe, April 6th.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to unfinished business, part 2. What we have on the agenda this evening is the graffiti ordinance that will go for second reading at the next meeting, March 16th, and ordinance number 1122, which is permit parking on Iroquois Street, which will see second reading on March 16th.
Can we back up to 1121?
Yes, sir. Ordinance 1121, the graffiti ordinance.
Just for discussion, I know that there was some concern about the time period for homeowners. We made the change to advertise to increase that from 10 days for each notice to 30 days for each notice. All right.
Which would then give a homeowner 30
Essentially-
days from time of notice and then another 30
And then
days
another 30
before.
days. So it essentially would be 60 days.
60 days, which I think is much more reasonable considering weather this time of year. If you would only have 10 days to do it, it would be a lot of work in the snow.
It'd be quite the adventure, that's for sure.
Appreciate that. Anyone have any concerns about ordinance 1121, the graffiti ordinance, before we move forward? Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to items not on the agenda, subject to Rule 9. Any member of Borough Council have anything there? Mayor's report, Mrs. Gilbert.
Progress.
Committee reports, Public Works, Mr. Labenberg.
We meet here in council chambers Thursday, March 5th at 3:30. Progress.
Health, Sanitation, and Codes, Mr. Shobsta.
Thank you, sir. We met on February 19th, and as you can see by our notes, it was an extensive meeting. We have 3 items on our agenda this evening. The first item is from Greg Walls from the Catholic War Vets. He'd come to us in regards to being billed, paying for a curbside pickup for his annex building. As you can see, he supplied us, we asked him about the building itself, if anyone was staying there. As you can see in the notes, he referred to that the secretary once in a while would sleep there, but she's not living there. There's really, it's an annex. It's used for meetings and gatherings there for the club. And he provided us some paperwork, as you can see, in regards to what he receives, the bill that he gets, and what the bill specifically states and covers both parcels. So he was asking the committee, and the committee discussed this at length in regards to the ordinance. We reviewed the ordinance, and based on what the ordinance states, it states that a nonprofit for which the Catholic War Vets is exempt from that. And he brought us the fact that he's tax exempt for the building. So we looked at the ordinance, which we all agreed is unclear and needs some revisions. But we voted on it in committee and unanimously voted to recommend to council for official action that we would exempt the Catholic War Vets from paying a curbside refuse bill for the annex building. And I'll put that into the form of of a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Shubstadt. We have a motion on the floor to exempt the Catholic War vets
Yeah.
from
Pay the $50.
the 2015 refuse bill, correct, Mr. Shubstadt?
Yes.
Is there a second to that motion? Second by Mr. Labenberg. Discussion. Mr. Anders.
Should part of that be that we will be charging him the $50 fee for the dumpster? Should that be included in the?
No, I think
Or
that's
that's
policy. I don't think that's necessary as
That's
part
in the
of.
ordinance.
Just making
That's a
sure.
normal policy.
Just making
Yep.
sure it's in, okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? We have 6 ayes.
And our second item that we received was a letter from Mrs. Stauffer. And what we got from that was, I just want to get back to my notes here to make sure. Yeah. She is requesting that the borough refund her for billings that took place between, I'm looking for the dates here, 2010 and all the way to 2015. She had been double billed. I spoke to Shane, and we spoke about this at the committee level, and it turns out that it's not 2 businesses that are in there. There is only 1 business. They're only zoned commercially for 1 business. So they had been billed for 2 businesses since 2010. So she was requesting a refund on that billing. So as you can see, there's you can see the emails that went back and forth in regards to that. And we discussed it at the committee level, and we had a I think it was a 2-to-1 vote to recommend that we refund Evans Wealth Strategies for portions of the 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014 refuse bills. And I'll place that in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Shubstadt. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Anders. Discussion. Mr. Barrett.
Is there a statute of limitations on, in the ordinance or in policy or borough code or anything that gives a basic standard of how far back something like this should be tracked?
So the question, Mr.
see that.
Dinkelhocker, is we determined that we incorrectly billed someone double refuse for 4 previous years. So is there anywhere that says you only have to refund so much when you make mistakes of that sort?
Well, in terms of whether or not the borough must refund?
Yes.
Well, there's 2 questions. You can refund if you want to refund at any point in time. In terms of a statute of limitations, I would view that as falling under, if you're the person that has overpaid, you have essentially a 4-year statute of limitations to pursue the borough for any type of a breach. I would analyze it almost as a contract style claim. Nothing prevents the borough from reimbursing a mistake at any time. But a pure legal statute of limitations, in my view, would be 4 years.
4 years. So, and I'm not suggesting this, I'm just asking it for a question.
Right.
So essentially, if we're in 2015, she's been billed 2015, we would go 4 years back from that point of the error, or was 2014 the first year that the error occurs?
No, 2011 was the first year that it occurred.
I'm sorry, it last occurred.
2014, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
We corrected their
got it on the-
2015 bill.
Okay.
Immediately upon Jim Farnsworth confirming that it is only one person.
Yep.
I mean, it falls within it. It was almost a clarification of if someone came to us and it's, I don't believe this has happened, but if it's happened for 15 years, where is our guideline to go? So 4 years is
4.
Okay.
Mr. Labenberg.
So we're within the 4 years.
I'm just curious, how does somebody pay double billing for 5 years and not say, why am I being double billed? I mean, I get a bill for a refuse for $600 or plus.
Her explanation was that someone else managed the finances of the business up until this year, and now she is handling the finances of the business and realized that she was paying for 2 units on
So
her
she
trash
caught
bill.
it in the previous years. It was just
The previous year, someone else did it for her.
Okay,
She had an
thank you. I was
accountant who
just
paid her
curious.
bills, I guess.
Yep. Yep, that's exactly what it was.
Any further discussion? Those in favor? We have 5 in favor. Those opposed? Mr. Holtsafer is opposed. Go ahead, Mr. Shubsda, next.
The other item we have for official action is to reappoint one individual. We have a reappointment of Chris Heckler to the Joint Environmental Advisory Committee, new term expiring 3/7/2018, and I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Shubsda. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Anders. Discussion. All those in favor? We have 6 ayes.
Those are the 3 official items we have. As you'll note, when you look through the notes here, you'll see that there were numerous discussions in regards to the ordinance, the type of billing that we're doing. We're going to go back to committee and discuss that. We're going to figure out a right way to handle some of the billings that are taking place in Emmaus, and also kind of adjust the ordinance a little bit. The other thing that we did discuss in length was recycling and refuse enforcement. We'll be discussing that more at a committee level, but I think I know I'm in favor of looking in the future for somebody to take over that refuse and recycling as a coordinator. I think it would be a great idea. They could really help out a lot with how we handle our billing, how we handle refuse, how we handle recycling, grant writing, working on educational programs and things of that nature. And I think that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'll report progress.
Thank you, Mr. Shubsda. Parks and Recreation, Mr. Anders.
Nothing for official action this evening. We meet on March 3rd at 4 p.m. here at Council Chambers. Progress.
Public Safety, Mr. Barrett or Mr. Brown, would you like to take that for us?
No, we have one item. At last meeting, we talked about the 5-mile race coming up in Funk Brewery.
Okay.
No motion was ever made to actually permit the alcohol in the triangle. We authorized the police officers, 2 of them, but we never voted to actually allow the alcohol in the triangle.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Labenberg to approve the use of alcohol in the triangle for the Funk 5-mile race. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Brown. Discussion. Anyone know dates or times or anything?
That was established in the last
Yeah.
June
Yeah,
6th or something like that.
The event was essentially
Approved and taken
Approved.
care of.
It
We
was
just
this caveat
it was
that
just
was-
oversight.
We
was
just
not-
missed this one.
And in general, I mean, we've permitted these types of activities to do this before. I don't think it's setting new.
It wasn't like a 9 a.m. drinking time.
It's not. It's after the race.
Okay.
So 9:15.
For clarification.
All right. All those in favor? We have 6 ayes. Someone from Public Safety want to report progress?
I'll report progress.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. General Administration, Mr. Barrett, that's also you.
Yes, we will be meeting on Wednesday at 9 a.m. Progress.
Sir, Budget and Finance. Only one item on the agenda this evening for Budget and Finance. That would be the bill list. If you would, please, Mr. Shubsda.
Resolution 2015-7, resolved by Borough Council to authorize payment of the March 2nd, 2015 bill list as follows. Bill list, $227,447.09. Payroll, number 4, $129,041.66. Payroll taxes, $44,773.66, for a total of $401,262.41. Done this 2nd of March, 2015, and I'll place that in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Shubsda. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Mr. Anders. Discussion. All in favor? We have 6 ayes. I believe that's it for Budget and Finance this evening. Progress for Budget and Finance. Moving on to Community Relations, Planning, and Development. Mr. Brown?
Our next meeting is March 10th here in Council Chambers at 4:15. I'll report progress.
Thank you, sir. Personal appeals part 2. If any member of the audience has a personal appeal, please approach the podium.
John Donchis, Emmaus. Just some questions, I guess, on the graffiti ordinance that was going on. I remember reading something about it earlier in the year, and how the owner, I guess, was going to be made to take care of whatever the graffiti was, cleaning it off, painting it, whatever. And it seemed like maybe it was mostly for commercial properties, particularly that maybe it pertains to, but I know of at least one personal property where that had happened to. And, you know, again, the owner or whoever it is the victim in this case, probably most all the time. And to assess them a cost, you know, to do it, considering it's something that, and I understand the purpose and all, you know, to keep things clean and discourage that sort of a thing. But again, to assess that fee to a property owner that technically is the victim of this is, you know, potentially harsh that way. I would think if it's a borough interest that the borough and all our citizens would support that by, like, having the borough take care of it. And then you have the problem of, well, what color, you know, brick, you know, there's a whole bunch of issues there that could vary the costs to the owner for something like this. And, you know, if it's something that the borough wants and they're going to use and exercise their power to fine and things like that to a victim, in this case, I just have questions on that. And that's all.
Mr. Lehman.
Just a thought. There's often, in the county level, there's always community service that is given to juveniles or offenders of the law. And I was just wondering if that's something that we could have them do in the future.
Well, yeah, absolutely you can. I mean, the thought process, let's be clear about the thought process. It's the idea of if somebody throws a brick through my window, who has to pay for that window if we don't catch a guy that throws the brick through my window? I still have to fix the window. It's the same concept with somebody painting a picture of a large penis on the side of my house. And the pictures that we gave to the morning call, the majority of them were exactly that. So you're seeing 5-year-old kids walk by your house asking mommy what that picture is. So the idea isn't to assess a fee. The idea isn't to assess a fine. The idea is to get it removed. And while they're the victim, I get that. But it's still their property. And that's the rationale that was behind that at the committee level, is it's still your property. We definitely feel bad about the fact that it happened to your property, but it's still your property. And the idea of you want that guy to pay for what happened on your property isn't necessarily equitable either.
No, but like you said, you know, if somebody throws a brick through a window, I can get that covered under my insurance.
Depends on your deductible.
Yeah.
You're probably paying out of your pocket no matter what.
Maybe, but you don't know what insurance people have. So it could be, it couldn't be. But at least that's something that's more a criminal kind of thing. So is that, I guess, too. But I don't know if, I don't know, maybe the lawyer would have to do something like that. I'm just not that familiar with if paying a big penis on the side of the thing is it criminal enough, and you can go to your insurance agent and say, crime, you know, it's going to cost me $1,000 or something because I got to paint the whole side of my house now, or re-side it because it's vinyl and there's some you know, etched in. I have no idea. I'm just asking.
I'm just explaining what the rationale when we addressed this at the committee level, what it was. I mean, that was really the rationale when we discussed that, because we did discuss that of, you know, boy, we're putting a burden on the property owner. But there again, I mean, everybody that walks by that house shouldn't be exposed to, mommy, what's that 4-letter word that starts with an F? You're seeing that, and we have a couple properties in this town that graffiti's been on there well over a year. I mean, we're taking the same pictures today that we took a year ago of the same piece of graffiti. Now, it's not a widespread problem, but it is an issue. I mean, you still see some of those same properties.
And, I mean, you noted it, you said it, the broken window. I mean, it's called the broken window syndrome, and if you ever read about it and how it was instituted in New York City, it was an extremely effective process in cleaning up crime. So,
And I did want to note what Mr. Pepe said earlier was, we did change the time from 10 days now. You have 30 days, then you have another 30 days. So now you're stretching 60 days, to give some extra time. We did reconsider the initial time frame. I mean, we did, take that in.
Yeah, I think it's important that, the idea really isn't to try to punish anybody. It's to address the people that are doing it, but B, it's to ultimately get it removed one way or another.
Like Brent's Way, where maybe there's some community service that some kid got
and
nailed.
Mr. Liebenberg's idea
you can
is a
clean
great
this.
idea.
Yep.
And that's something that we can always discuss, because we have people that have been arrested for other things that are knocking on the door for community service. That probably a good idea. They'd think twice after they're out there scrubbing a few times.
And again, if those committee meetings were videoed, we could go back and reference those for everybody, and that'd be nice. Thank you.
Otto Slozer, 121 East Elm Street in Mass. In regards to the public meeting you had and the proposed, or I guess it's a fact now, the purchase of the Rodale site